Okay, I got 203. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Hyro McMeekin. I am currently, and my pronouns are we, he, him, and his. I currently serve in a dual capacity as the Dean of Student Learning at Central Carolina Community College, and then also as the Director of Equity and Pathways for the North Carolina Student Success Center. I'm glad to have Miss Elizabeth Stoddard here today. And so before we get started, though, I would like to open the floor to our Executive Director, Ms. Dolores Ali, if you would like to say anything.
Just want to say good afternoon. I am excited about being here, especially around data, since data drive our decisions. So I imagine we have a great conductor here. So good, Elizabeth, to see you and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
All right. So let me introduce Elizabeth Stoddard, who has worked with educational data and analytics since 2010. She specializes in turning data into useful information and making it available to users in engaging ways. She has worked with a range of educational providers, including community colleges and four-year universities. In her current role, she designs interactive data dashboards for the North Carolina Community College system. Elizabeth holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from James Madison University and a master's degree in social psychology from San Francisco State University. And with that being said, I will turn this over to Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate you all taking the time this afternoon to be here for this workshop. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, hopefully, let's say share. Okay, hopefully you all can see my PowerPoint here. As Hyra said, I'm Elizabeth Stoddard. I am a business intelligence analyst on the research and performance management team at the system office here. My office is responsible for reporting data that we collect from the 58 community colleges, and we report data to federal entities and state entities, and also back out to the colleges. So I started here about 2.5 years ago, and my position is focused on developing dashboards. And so that's what I'll be showing you today. We'll be doing a deep dive into one of the dashboards that I've developed, and I'm going to show you how to use it to answer some questions about your students and course outcomes. So let's see. All right, this is just the agenda for today. First, I'm going to show you how to access our dashboards, and I'm going to do just a short kind of demonstration of the dashboard that we'll be using. And then for the next part of the presentation, it's going to be more hands-on learning. So I have some questions listed on my PowerPoint that I'll display on the screen, and all of these questions can be answered with the dashboard that I'll be showing you. So I'm gonna show you a question and then give you a couple minutes to use the dashboard to try to get that answer yourself, and then I'll come back and kind of walk you through how I would use the dashboard to answer that question. And then if we have time at the end, I also have some discussion questions that we can talk about together. But usually the hands-on learning part of it takes a good bit of time. And if there are any questions during this workshop, feel free to type them into the chat. Hyro volunteered to kind of watch that for me, and again, you can feel free to interrupt when any questions come up, and I'll make sure they get answered. And then there hopefully will be some time at the end to answer questions as well. You can also, it's fine with me if you want to unmute yourselves to ask questions, particularly during the kind of hands-on part of the session, because I know sometimes it's easier to just unmute and ask the question rather than type it all out. So that's fine with me if anyone wants to do that. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna go over to my web browser to show you how to access the dashboards here. So hopefully everyone can see my web browser now and not the PowerPoint anymore. But if that is not the case, then please let me know. To access our dashboards, we can start here at the ncommunitycolleges.edu homepage. And then there are a few ways to do it. I usually tell people to click on this little icon on the top corner with the 3 horizontal lines, and then click on analytics and reporting. And by the way, you can follow along with me if you want to, but you don't have to. I'll also, we'll put the link to get to this actual dashboard in the chat in a couple minutes, so you don't have to follow along with this part of it if you don't want to. You can just watch. But this is the homepage for the research and performance management team. In this dashboard section over here, you can click on read more and you get to our dashboard homepage. Our dashboards are organized by theme. So here we're seeing a list of themes. You can click on any of these themes to see a list of the dashboards underneath. We have a great many dashboards here, but today we're going to be focusing on a dashboard in the curriculum, student progress, and success theme. And we're going to be looking at this dashboard, which is curriculum, course outcomes by student demographics. So I'm just going to click on this, and again, you can follow along, but you also might want to just watch and then watch and learn what things are and how to access things, and then when we get to the hands-on part of the workshop, we'll get that link into the chat for you, and then you can get here yourself and start using it. So this is our curriculum course outcomes by student demographic dashboard. If you're not familiar with our dashboards, I'll give you just a quick, I'll show you where things are. So most of our dashboards have a number of tabs across the top, and all of these tabs have different views of the data. And then I want to call your attention to the sidebar on the right hand side. This is where you'll always be able to access any relevant filters for the dashboard, legends, notes, notes about data sources or calculations. So just, things to help you as you're navigating the dashboard and to refer back to. Any filters that are in red font here, that's an indication that selection will carry through to other pages of the dashboard. So if I select a college here on the first page, Hyra, can I use Central Carolina as I'm kind of walking through the functionality of this dashboard?
Oh, please do.
Thank you. All right, so if I select Central Carolina here, thank you. We will see as I keep going through that this selection will carry through to all of the pages of the dashboard. We can also, if we want to, we could select a comparison institution. So you can compare your school against another institution in the community college system, or you can compare against NCCCS as a whole system-wide. When we're looking at trends, we can look across reporting years, which is what we're seeing now, 3 reporting years, or we can look at summer terms or fall terms or spring terms. So if you change your selection there, now we're looking across 3 spring terms instead of 3 reporting years. And then this final drop down here for show trends by, I'm gonna come back to this one in a second, but this is where we can start getting into our disaggregations, our demographic disaggregations. But before I do that, I want to show you what we're actually looking at here. So we kind of had 2 rows. So this top row here is showing some graphs for Central Carolina, our selected college, and then the bottom row of graphs is showing data for NCCCS. And we're seeing on the far left here, we're seeing a graph showing the total graded enrollments over time over these 3 spring terms. Graded enrollments, we have a note down here. Graded enrollments are defined as enrollments excluding AU and CE records. So that's what we're looking at here. This graph is showing the success rate over time, success rate being defined as A, B, C, and P grades. This is the average course grade on a scale of 0 to 4. And then we have the withdrawal rate over here, which is the rate of W grades. Now coming back to this show trends by drop down, here's where we can select a category here or select a disaggregation here, and we'll start to see these disaggregations happen. So right now we're looking at outcomes for females versus males. And I'll also note here that since this dashboard is showing outcome data, we do suppress it, meaning that if a group has fewer than 20 students in it, we don't show the outcomes for that group. So at a high level like this, when we're looking across the whole college, we're probably not going to see very much suppression, but when we get down into subject and course level, I'll show you an example where we start to see some suppression, but that's just something to keep in mind, that we do suppress the data on this dashboard to protect student privacy. So, so anything with fewer than 20 enrollments in it is suppressed. The outcomes are suppressed. Let's see. Oh, I forget if I showed you this, but you can also click on a category on the legend here to highlight the data points for the selected category. We don't.
Elizabeth,
yeah.
I apologize. Yeah. I just need to jump back in based on something you just shared.
Yeah.
You said the suppression happens with, if there's less than 20 students. Was that something that y'all did on your own, or was that something requested?
It's an office-wide or an RPM team-wide policy to protect student privacy. And it's just when we're showing outcomes. So like on our enrollment dashboard, we would show you if there's one student enrolled, but when it's like a success rate or some sort of student outcome, we don't show it if they're fewer than 20, because we don't want, this is all public facing, anyone can access it, and we don't want people to be able to like find specific students.
Yeah. And so is that listed in the metric details? Is that listed somewhere there?
It's in a note, outcome suppressed when total graded enrollments is less than 20.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And it's on every page. It might be on the metric details too, but it's a note on every page.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so as part of that suppression thing, we also don't show the total number of graded enrollments in this dashboard. We show you, like you can see for females here for this red line, you can kind of approximate it based on where it is in the axis. It's probably like 8,500 or so, but that's another kind of measure that we use to protect student privacy and prevent the public from being able to identify actual students, especially when these counts are really low. We don't show the actual number of students. So let me keep going. So we can also, we can show trends by sex here, by race, ethnicity, which disaggregates into these 8 racial ethnic categories, and by age range as well. And whatever selections we make here on the first page will carry through to this next page, which is going to look very similar. But this is outcomes by subject. So previously we were looking at your college-wide overall outcomes. Here is where we can drill down into a subject. So you can just use this filter here. There's a list of subjects. We do, for math and English, we separate developmental and college level math and English. So you'll see math less than 100, math MIT greater than or equal to 100, and the same with English. So we do, we have that in here. And of course, you can just click on a subject here and you'll see the outcomes for that particular subject. And this is, I also want to mention, so like this category, 45 to 64, you can see at Central Carolina, there's a line for it over here. So that's an indication that there were students at Central Carolina in biology who were enrolled, but there were fewer than 20 because we're not seeing that orange line on any of these other outcome graphs. So this is kind of how we show you that you do have, you know, students in this category, but there weren't enough that we can show you outcomes for that category. So that's just something else to keep in mind as you're navigating these dashboards. The next tab is, again, hopefully going to be very familiar by now, but this lets you look down at the course level. So you can, you know, scroll down this list, or you can type in the search to filter down to a specific course that you're interested in. I usually get a question here asking if we have data at the course section level or the faculty level, and the answer is in this dashboard we do not, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that we like at those levels, especially the course section level, the cell sizes, the groups would start to get very small when doing these disaggregations, and we would end up, especially for some of the smaller schools, we would end up suppressing more than we show. So we decided not to include that here. And also, again, because this is a public facing dashboard, and we weren't sure that we thought there might be a little bit of pushback from including faculty outcomes at the faculty level in this dashboard. So in this dashboard, we only go down to this level, the course level. I think that we might have a future dashboard in another space where we can go down to more granular levels, particularly a faculty level. We recently started developing dashboards in an access controlled space called Power BI dashboards, if any of you are familiar with that. And those dashboards are all behind a login. Only users from the colleges can access them. So I think that will be the avenue that we take in the future for getting you some of your more you know, faculty level, course section level data. But right now in this dashboard, the most granular level that we go down to is this course level. Let's see, so the next tab here on this dashboard is called Compare Peers, and this is a kind of a peer comparison view. So what we're seeing here, we're seeing the 58 colleges across the bottom, and each dot corresponds to the overall success rate for that college. The yellow one here, that's just the college that I selected earlier, that's Central Carolina. Yeah, so this is just a comparison of the overall success rates for all colleges. Here is where we can start drilling down a little bit further into student population. So on the previous pages, we were like only disaggregating by gender or by race, ethnicity, or by age. Here we can start getting into more intersectionalities of those categories. So right now we're just looking at everything, but I can say that I want to filter down to females, and that'll update the view a tiny bit. The dots moved a little bit, and it's probably hard to see, but let's see if I can zoom in. There are actually two horizontal lines here. The gray one is the overall NCCCS success rate, which it's telling us is 75%. And then there's kind of a golden color dotted line, which is the average success rate for our selected demographic population, which in this case is all females. So you can see that success rate is 76%. So it's slightly higher than the average NCCCS rate. So that was all females. We could go down even further. We could say Black females. And then again, the graph updates. And then our overall NCCCS success rate will still be that 75%. But now our average for our demographic population, if I can get it, is 65%. So you can, and then you can choose an age range too if you want to. So you can drill down in this view to these intersections of demographic populations. And then you can use these pages across the top to look at this data at the subject and course level as well. So right now we're looking at the overall level. If I click here, it'll be a similar view, but we can select a subject from the list, and we can still do all of those. We can still filter to our very specific population, but now we'll be looking at success rates for a specific subject. And similarly, we can do the same thing, look at outcomes for a specific course. So that's what you can do on this peer comparison tab. The next two tabs allow you to compare. This happened last time I tried it too. I don't know why it's doing that, but let me refresh here. I was having a little bit of trouble yesterday with Tableau Public, so I apologize that this is kind of giving me trouble today. Hopefully it starts behaving. On the compare subjects tab, this is where we can kind of do a deep dive into, we can look across subjects at one institution. So right now we're still looking at Central Carolina because I selected that on the first page. We're looking at the 2021 reporting year, and I'll show you this one in a second, but we're looking, this is a list of all of the subjects that were offered at Central Carolina in 2021. And these are the success rates for each subject. When you see rows that don't have a circle, that's an indication that that subject was offered, but there were fewer than 20 students or enrollments in the class. This graph, we can sort, right now it's sorted alphabetically by subject. We can also sort it from high to low. So this shows you, your subjects with the highest success rate, and then you can scroll down the list to get to the subjects with the lowest success rates, and then these ones at the bottom, which didn't have more than 20 or more students in them. So that's kind of your overall view. We can also disaggregate that data by our demographics here. So right now I'm looking at it, the same list of subjects, but we're disaggregating the success rate by sex. So that's what we're looking at by default. We can sort this graph either alphabetically, which is how we're seeing it, or by the gap. What that will do is calculate the difference between for each row, the group with the highest success rate and the group with the lowest success rate. And it will sort this list by that difference. So this is showing us that web technologies is the subject at Central Carolina that had the largest gap between males and females in 2021, the largest gap in success rates. And that gap we can see here was 21%. We can sort, or we can scroll down this list, and as we scroll, we'll see that this gap between females and males is getting smaller and smaller, which you can also see over here in this column as well, until we get down here, and then the gap is almost non-existent. And then again, we'll see some subjects at the bottom here where there's like only a dot for males. This subject either didn't have any females in it, or it had fewer than 20 females. So that's how to interpret these subjects at the bottom of the list where we're not seeing a gap. We have this view by race ethnicity as well, disaggregated by race ethnicity. So I'm going to sort the graph by the gap. And here, when it's a little bit harder to see those differences, because there are up to 8 categories, up to 8 dots in each row, you can click on this button that says click to highlight the highest and the lowest. And so that will, for each row, it will highlight the group with the highest rate and the group with the lowest rate. And that'll allow you to that will allow you to better visualize that gap kind of, or at least that's our hope. And then we have that view for age range as well, where you can sort it by the gap. The compare courses tab here is going to be very similar to what we just saw, except that here, let's just go over to one of these disaggregations. Except that, of course, we're looking at all of the courses now. And if you're saying that's way too many courses to look at in one view, I agree. And we can use this subject filter over here to narrow this list down to just a single subject. So if I click on accounting here, that will, that'll shorten this list so that we're only seeing courses in accounting. And again, we can still sort the graph by the gap here, and we can still highlight the highest and the lowest. And so we have that view for comparing courses here and disaggregating by race, ethnicity, by age range, by sex right here, and the overall view. And then the metric details tab, we have this on all of our dashboards, but it just it gives you some information about the calculations and the data sources, and then it kind of tells you what everything is in the dashboard and what you can find here. So that was just a quick walkthrough of the dashboard. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer before I kind of move on to the next part of the workshop? Is there anything in the chat?
No, ma'am. I posted it. If they have any questions, go ahead and post them here, but nothing yet.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So Jairo, if you wouldn't mind putting that link in the chat to the dashboard. If people aren't there already, you all can click on the link. Thank you, Jairo. I appreciate that. You all can click on the link to access this dashboard on your own. And then let me hop back over to my PowerPoint here. So these slides are just all about how to get to the dashboard. And so my next few slides here, as I said, I have some questions here, all of which can be answered through the dashboard. And I'm gonna just like display it on the screen and kind of walk you through it, and then give you a couple minutes to use the dashboard yourself to answer the question. I also have a slide with the kind of solutions on it that gives you the step-by-step instructions for answering the question. So, and I forget if I said this already, but I'll send these slides after the presentation to Jairo so that they can be sent out to all of the participants, so that you can kind of refer back to this later on your own time if you want to. So the first question that I have here for the hands-on learning part of the workshop is from the outcomes overview tab. So that's where you're going to find the answer to this question. Compare the success rate of your college with NCCCS in the 2020 to 2021 reporting year. And then just a little note that you can hover over the data points to find the exact success rate. So I'm just gonna be quiet for like a minute and give you all some time to do that, and then I'll come back. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I would answer this question using the dashboards, and you all can follow along if you want. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. But we are looking at the outcomes overview, and we're comparing the success rate of our college with NCCCS. So we would come back to the dashboard. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Whoops. And again, I thank you, Jairo, for letting me use your college to do my demonstration. So the overall success rate for Central Carolina in 2021 was 74%, and the overall success rate for NCCCS in 2021 was also 74%. So for those, it was equal, but you might have had different results at your institutions. Let's see. So this just tells you, make sure that you know which filters to use, and then tells you what to look for to get those data points. The next question here is compare trends across reporting years and the average course grade, or the GPA, for males and females at your college. How do trends at your college compare with trends at the NCCCS? So I'll give you another minute or so, and then I'll come back and walk through it with you. All right, so let's come back and I'll show you how I would answer this question in the dashboard. So we are looking across reporting years for males and females for GPA. So I would say on this outcomes overview tab, and I would say show trends by sex. That would that'll disaggregate by female versus male, and then you can click on the categories here on the legend to see the actual GPAs here. You can either click on it or hover over it to see the actual numbers, but we can see that females have a very slightly higher GPA compared to males for Central Carolina, and that we're seeing that across all 3 reporting years here. But that difference is pretty small for all 3 of these years. And then at NCCCS, we're seeing pretty much the exact same thing. Females are higher than males in terms of GPA across all 3 years. The difference looks slightly higher, slightly bigger in 18-19 compared to 2021, but we can see those differences are very slight for all of 3 reporting years.
What's next after O?
All right.
Not going anywhere.
Let's go to the next question here. Here we're going to start with the outcomes by subject tab. And we're going to look at the success rate for developmental English less than 100, by race ethnicity at your school across fall terms. How does your school compare with NCCCS? What trends do you notice when you look at the success rate by race, ethnicity? Which groups were the most successful? Which groups were the least successful? So I'll give you another minute or so to pull that up, and then I'll come back. All right, so let me come back and I'll show you how I would walk through the dashboard to answer this question. So the success rate for developmental English by race ethnicity across fall terms. So let's come back to the dashboard. We're going to go to outcomes by subject here. I'm going to stick with Central Carolina. I'm going to compare against NCCCS. I'm going to select fall terms for my time frame. I'm going to select race ethnicity for my disaggregation. And I think I said developmental English for my subject. So one thing I'm saying right off the bat is that for outcomes, I'm only showing outcomes for 3 race ethnicity categories here, but they're on my enrollments graph over here, there are 7 lines. So this is just telling me that all of these categories, the multiple, the unknown, the Asian, and the American Indian Alaskan race ethnicities had fewer than 20 enrollments across these fall terms in developmental English. So they're here, we can see that they're here, but we're not seeing the outcomes for them. And we're not seeing the average course grade because these are developmental courses. But I think from looking at the success rates, I'm seeing that across all of the fall terms, white students had higher success rates, followed by Hispanic students, followed by Black students. And then we're seeing for both Black and white students, we're seeing an increase between fall 18 and fall 19. Didn't see that increase for Hispanic students, so that looks like a decrease. But then all 3 groups had a decrease between fall 19 and fall 20. And you know, every institution has a different story and a different context, but a lot of these changes that we're seeing in the 2020 calendar year, which encompasses fall 20, are, you know, there was a lot going on with COVID and the pandemic, so there was just a lot of chaos happening in spring 20 and summer and fall 20. So that's just something you all know your institutions the best and what was going on at your institution. So you would know, you know, how to kind of talk about these changes that you see. And then we're, looking at withdrawal rates over here, we're seeing, maybe corresponding increases in withdrawal rates, corresponding to the decreases in success rates that we're seeing over here. So that's something to keep in mind, with the highest withdrawal rate seen among Black students. And then comparing to the NCCCS, I think at the system level, we're also seeing that decrease between fall 19 and fall 20 across all of these categories. So we're seeing those trends everywhere. It looks like Black students have some of the lowest success rates that we're seeing at NCCCS and at the college we selected. Hawaiian Pacific Islander, we're also seeing some low success rates in fall 2020, and then American Indian, Alaskan as well. But those groups also have very small numbers of enrollments in them. So that's something to keep in mind too. This, just looking at the NCCCS graph here, we can also see that cross between the line for the Black students and the line for the white students going from fall 19 to fall 20. So we're seeing that historically for the previous 3 fall terms, there were more Black students enrolled in developmental English than white students, but that crossed in fall 20 where we're seeing more white students enrolled at the system level compared to Black students. So I think that's about all I can say right off the bat about that analysis. Let's go back to my PowerPoint. Have there been any questions or anything that anyone wants to mention before I go on? Are we
yes,
good?
well, there was one question from somebody, and it says, for data with less than 20, does anyone have any recommendations for how folks can approach zeroing in on the groups without compromising identity?
I think that, well, until we can get our kind of our student level views in Power BI up, which I'm hoping we'll be able to do, we're still working out some issues, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get those available for you in Power BI maybe this academic year. I think that you'd have to work with your IR offices at your college, because they should be able to get you that data. They would have access to all of your course level enrollments. So look for your institutional research department at your colleges, and hopefully they'll be able to help. I know that it's one of the downsides to these dashboards is that they're public facing, and so we have to find this balance between making them useful to you, but also protecting student privacy. So we spent a long time trying to find that right balance, and we're still kind of working it out. But I'm hoping that with this Power BI space that we have access to, where colleges can get their information behind a login, that'll fill a lot of these gaps that we have now with our public facing dashboards. Was there anything else that I can answer before I go on?
One more question that just came in. Is there a dashboard that reports student success by course by delivery method?
There is. Yes, let me show you. I'll come back to this dashboard. It's in the same theme, curriculum, student progress and success. It is the curriculum course outcomes by course characteristics dashboard, and it's structured pretty similarly to the dashboard that I was already showing you, except that now for our show trends by filter, we have instructional method. So by delivery method, we're saying instructional method, and we're just disaggregating between online and not online. If you want something different than that or something more than that, you can feel free to email. I have my email, or I have my team's email address on the PowerPoint. So I'll be showing that in a couple minutes, but you can email us and tell us more about what you're looking for. And I can let you know if it's on another dashboard, or if it's not on a dashboard, I can give you some more information if this isn't what you're looking for. Anything else before I go on?
Well, Elizabeth, I have a question, just a personal one though. So in the book, Equity Talk to Equity Walk, they talk about, when you're looking at data, how important it is to look at the data. But they said also, if you have an IR department, now I think mostly it was written for a university audience, but it said that if you have an IR department that provides data, it said that it'd be very helpful if those IR or IE departments, whatever you have at your college or your institution, also provided like examples of how to use the data. So I know you're doing a great job of showing it right now, but it said like maybe on the right-hand side, you have like some example questions and then walk them through the steps as far as like what that is, but it's there with the data. So if I come in and, I'm new to all this, I'm just, either curious or I just really want to learn, it gives me an opportunity to learn right there with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I know with these dashboards, like we try to do that, and we are always thinking about ways to do that more. I've done a few of these kind of faculty workshops, and I really like them because they let me, answer targeted questions and show you how to walk through the dashboards to answer those questions. But I know that if most people who are just trying to get some information one day aren't gonna sit through a workshop or a training session. So yeah, we're always thinking about like how to incorporate that kind of thing into these dashboards, like putting up, these are the questions that you can answer on this dashboard, that type of thing.
Okay.
I appreciate that feedback. Let's see. I have a couple more questions on my PowerPoint here, but I know that I'm gonna run out of time soon. So maybe I'll just kind of walk you through how to answer these last ones. But this question is, starting on the Compare Peers tab, compare the success rate across all institutions in Math 171, and look at how your school compares to the other colleges in looking at success in Math 171. And then as a bonus question, compare the success rate across all institutions in Math 171 for Black male students. How does success at your school for this population compare to other schools? So to do that, you would go back to your dashboard here, and you would go to this Compare Peers tab. And we wanted to look at a specific course. We were talking about Math 171. So I would go to this by course page here. And then I'm going to do a little search for Math 171. I'm going to click it, and the graph is going to update with the success rates for each college in Math 171. And you can see kind of the range. You can also sort this graph in different ways. Let me just sort it from high to low. So this will show you, the school. This will just give you a different view of that, and then you can find your school on the list and see where in this range your school falls. And then again, if you're interested in like Black male students, you can do that drill down using these filters over here. So you can go to the sex filter and select male, and then select Black from race ethnicity. And then, so we're seeing a lot of little asterisks here. That's telling us that these schools have fewer than 20 Black males enrolled in Math 171. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. But then of the schools that do that are showing data points here. You can kind of see if your school is in this group and then where you fall on this list. But this is also telling us that the average success rate for Math 171 across the NCCCS is this gray horizontal line, and that was 64%. But the average success rate for our selected demographic, Black males, was 47%. So that allows you to see that that gap between your population and the average NCCCS population. Let's see. So my last question, I kind of already showed you this. I can do a quick walkthrough, but I wanted to take a deep dive into college level math courses at your college in 2021 and see which courses had the highest and lowest overall success rates. And then we can look at the breakdown in those success rates disaggregated by race ethnicity and see, are there racial ethnic gaps in success rates in math, in college level math courses? Which courses had the largest gap? How did those gaps compare to the overall gap at your college? So let's go back. I'll just briefly show you how to do this. I know I'm almost out of time. And we can just stay up here at the NCCCS level because that'll give us more to look at. There's not as much suppressed when we're looking across the whole system. So I clicked on compare courses. I'm going to race ethnicity. And I want to look at my college level math courses. So let's go to math greater than or equal to 100. And then so my list here is filtered to just those college level math courses. And I can sort the graph by the gap here. And I'm going to highlight the highest and the lowest. So this is telling us that Math 152, Statistical Methods, is the course across the whole system. This is the course that had the largest gap in racial ethnic group. So Black students had the lowest success rate, and Hawaiian Pacific Islander students had the highest success rate in this course. We can scroll down to see, as which courses are showing up here as this gap gets lower. These two at the bottom, the only racial ethnic category with more than 20 students was white, so we're not seeing any gaps for these two courses at the bottom. But Math 273 was the course with the lowest gap, the smallest gap between racial ethnic group, and that gap was 9% over here. Black students had the lowest success rate, and students that identified as multiple race ethnicities had the highest success rate for this one. And then of course you can kind of see the trends too. So when we're looking at the lowest success rates over here, we're often seeing that those are the Black students, and then there's a little more variation over here when we're looking at the highest success rates. So those are some examples of questions that you can answer with this dashboard. I know that it's a lot, and I hope that it was helpful to be able to kind of go through and answer these specific questions. Again, I'll make these slides available after the fact or after the presentation so that you can refer back to it. I had some discussion questions here too that you can think about. We have a couple minutes, so you can give some ideas too, but I was wondering how you could use this information to minimize gaps between demographic groups. What other information might you need in order to start moving that needle? And I know that one of those answers will be, you need more data, you need data for those smaller groups. And I understand that. Maybe you need data at the faculty level or at the core section level as well. I understand that. And then I also just have a note here to encourage you to share this with your peers, with your department. And, you know, if you find it useful, then maybe others will as well. And you can encourage others to use it as well. Those are all that's all the content I had. But I do want to just have, this is the email address for my team, rpm@ncommunitycolleges.edu. And we always welcome feedback and questions and comments. So if you have anything that you'd like to share, anything that you'd like to ask us, please email us. It'll come to our whole team, and among us, we'll be able to help you and get your question answered. But it looks like I have 2 minutes left. If anyone wants to weigh in on, any of these discussion questions, please feel free to.
And Elizabeth, just for a quick plug, if all of you that have been here today, if you please fill out the quick post assessment, it's about 6 or 7 questions. It should take you about 3 to 5 minutes to complete. If you could do that, just so we can get some feedback and figure out how we can improve and who we need to bring back for different presentations of that sort. So if you could please do that for us. And then Elizabeth, I do want to make one comment just based off of some reading I did lately, a book called No BS by Ivory Tolston, and his recommendation for closing equity gaps amongst different demographics is to do intra-group measurements. And so, looking at your highest performing, and for instance, if we're looking at Math 171, looking at the difference between the highest performing Math 171 amongst, let's say, Black males compared to the ones that aren't performing as well. And then when you close those gaps, that are more likely close the other gaps. So it's like doing the intra-group stuff, because not that any group is monolithic, everybody has their own, experiences, but you're more likely to close. You're going to make more gains and cover more ground if you do it an intra-group first before you start comparing to the highest performing group that doesn't necessarily identify the same way as the other one.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah. Right. Well, again, we'll get this sent out. So as soon as Elizabeth gives us the slides, we'll send it out as soon as the recording finished rendering. We'll get both of those out to you. If you could please fill out the post assessment, we really appreciate that data that we need for ourselves, and how important that is. And so thank you, Elizabeth, for providing this information, for also making it engaging and helping people see it and then actually try to do it for themselves. I think that always works wonders, better than just sitting here listening to somebody talk. So thank you for doing it that way and presenting it. We appreciate that. And then Ms. Ali, if there's anything you want to add.
I appreciate the deeper dive and then showing me actually where the components are and the themes for the dashboards. I like that. No matter how many times you tell me, to hear it again and see it again makes it easier to get to it, to access it, and then making sense of all the different data points. And so I appreciate it. And Jairo, I appreciate what you shared about your recent findings in your reading about pulling like groups together or members in the same groups together to look at their efforts to improve. So that was great. So thank to both of you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for Jairo, thank you for your moderation, and thank you for having me this afternoon. And I appreciate everyone for taking the time to be here.